Hi, I'm Shawn with the Sacramento History Museum, and welcome to my cluttered office. One thing I admire and appreciate about the museum is that as a small staff museum, all of the staff members jump into other tasks and apply their skill sets to other things. So we all work as a team in that regard. And one of the things that I get to do, my official title is tour manager, but I also do apply my graphic design and illustration experience to signage, promotions, logos, and one of those projects is the annual card that the museum gives out to people and that Howard prints. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I started doing custom illustrations for that card. I'm not sure how that started. I'm sure I've probably talked somebody into it. The previous printings had been vintage cuts, and I imagine with all the notoriety that Howard has gotten that it could easily circle back to future cards being prints of vintage cuts. But for the last 6 years, it's been custom, and been trying to do something that's specific to Sacramento and usually to the 19th century. So the first one that I did was this of a steamboat plying the river at night, and this is where I learned a lesson that actually took me a long time to learn. The first thing Howard said when I showed it to him is, that's a lot of dark mass that the print press will have a hard time covering. So I tried to be mindful of that. He printed it. It was true that a lot of this mass had a hard time covering. I couldn't, this was never used, but I had to still scratch the itch because the challenge was doing something on a card that was specific to Sacramento City or Old Sacramento. And this is a view at nighttime looking down Front Street. This is the Tehama Block buildings, and that's the platform on top of the Newton Booth building, which no longer exists. But I also knew instinctively that's, again, a lot of ink that would be hard to print. I kind of hit it better with this one. It became more and more difficult to depict Old Sacramento in some way that was universal but easily recognized, and the gas lamps, or the lamps that look like gas lamps in Old Sacramento, are one symbol. They right away evoke the 19th century, and I have a silhouette of a building in the rays of the light to just suggest an older building. But then it became more challenging to keep with that theme because it's very hard to depict something about Old Sacramento in one color on a card that people recognized immediately as being from this neighborhood. So I went off the tracks a little bit this next year with the yellow-billed magpie, which is a native only to California, only to the Sacramento Valley and the Central Coast, and they wander around here. It's kind of fascinating to watch. I set this up for one color, and then the staff was going to color the bill and the eyes yellow and the wings blue, and I still hear about that from the staff because not only have they been signing all of the cards, but this time I asked them to get out their markers and crayons and add color in that way. So obviously I didn't learn my lesson. The next year we switched from strictly Christmas holiday. We've tried not to make these cards overtly Christmas, but we switched the emphasis to Thanksgiving and counting our blessings, so to speak. So I made one of a woman with a carton of Bounty and a steamboat in the background. You can tell I'm fascinated by steamboats. But again, this has violated Howard's first admonition. He said that's way too much dark mass and the press will not be kind to it, and it was true. And the next year last year we concentrated on the diversity, how the world came rushing in because of the gold rush, and so these figures represent people who came here to Sacramento, and we added a vellum sheet that went inside the card that kind of explained who these people were. So that was a layer of work. This year, I'm not even quite sure where the discussion went for the card. I know that Delta, our director, loves the river and feels like we should present more of the river in our exhibits and programming, and I agree. And so as most illustrations start out, I did some sketches, all river related. I was fascinated. I'm fascinated by the sturgeon that you can't see in the river because the river is green and opaque. And this suggests there's plenty of sturgeon. And it's probably, I'm sure there's not that many, but I was inspired also by M.C. Escher's drawings, almost like tessellations, repeated patterns. And the sturgeon is a very geometric, odd-looking fish, and so I just pictured the parts of the sturgeon kind of swimming past. And I went for more pastoral ideas of a heron and a leaf dripping water, each one with a steamboat. I had to have a steamboat, an otter, river otter, which I've not seen in this part of the river. And then finally, salmon slash steelhead swimming in the river. So suggesting bounty and plenty. And Delta went for this one. And I think in her mind, and based on her discussion, she was thinking something that would evoke this soft pencil shading look. And I like it too, but that is not what the print shop in the museum can do. That's letterpress, and I think the soft pencil, getting those gradations of shade, are really lithography, literally stone writing, and we don't do lithography in the museum. So the final work looks like this. And so I was going to do this in a medium called scratchboard, which is a board with a clay layer on it, and then you apply ink, and then you can take a tool such as an X-Acto knife or special tools and scrape away the ink to just leave what image you wanted to show on it. And there are some artists who I admire. Michael Halbert is one, and Mark Summers, who are experts at scratchboard, and especially at making scratchboard do the work of an engraving. And I was going to do that and realized I just do not have enough practice doing that. So I went to my go-to, which was to do this on a computer using Adobe Illustrator, which is something I'm familiar with. The beauty of Adobe Illustrator is that you can undo and redo the lines almost unlimited times. The bad news about Illustrator is that you can undo or redo the lines endless times, because that's what I was doing. It took a long time. And the sum is that I was trying to create a 19th century engraving look, and then we send the digital result to a photo engraver. Owasso in Michigan does these each year, and they use 21st century technology, lasers. They use a digital file, and they use special lasers to cut the image just as they see it in the digital file into copper and attach it to wood and send it back. And so this is the printing block that Howard will use to print the card. And he is going to print in, I believe, Pantone Classic Green ink, which is a throw, an homage to the Discovery Museum. Earlier, Jared, who's behind the camera, showed a print of the Discovery Museum logo, and the original colors were this green and a kind of maroon. So Howard's going to print this image and the art on the back in the green ink, and then set the type inside of using the letter forms available in the print shop. And so that's how it's done. That's how we do it every year. And so now we're thinking about what to do for the next year.